This is CBC Vancouver News.
The load did come off, and you can see it actually struck the building behind us.
Death at a construction site in Vancouver. A crane drops its load 25 stories up at the Oakridge Center redevelopment site, killing one person below. Plus,
I think of my daughter every single day, but I don't want to think of Robert Pickton every day.
Fears over a serial killer's possible day release. Family members of Robert Pickton's victims gather for a vigil, concerned he's now eligible to apply for parole. A surprise reversal from the BC government.
Today I'm announcing that we will not be moving ahead with Land Act amendments.
The province scraps a plan to allow shared decision-making with First Nations about the use of public land. Hello, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. One person has been killed after a tower crane dropped its load onto a building under construction in Vancouver. This happened this afternoon at a large-scale redevelopment in the Oakridge area. The incident happened 25 stories in the air. Nearly 1,800 construction workers were immediately evacuated from the site. Cambie Street between 41st and 45th Avenues was closed through rush hour as multiple agencies responded. Vancouver fire rescue crews confirmed the person who died was on the ground when they were struck by the falling load. Authorities are still in the process of identifying that victim, including determining whether they were a construction worker. Significant damage could be seen to multiple floors of the high-rise building. As the CBC's Sarah Galashan explains, this isn't the only crane incident to have happened recently with deadly consequences.
Has come on the heels, I want to point out, of a number of other crane incidents, accidents that have happened within the last month. On January 26th, along Lougheed Highway, there was a crane collapse, closing the highway for a period of time. January 30th, out in Surrey, a construction site, another crane incident happening there. Of course, just yesterday, there were the recommendations for criminal negligence charges related to the Kelowna crane collapse in 2021.
And today's fatality has prompted construction unions now to call on the province for better crane safety. In a statement, BC's Premier and Labour Minister send their condolences, adding every worker deserves to return home safely at the end of the day. And this incident is a stark reminder of the importance of workplace safety. There has been no comment yet from the developers behind the project. Well, family and friends of women murdered by Robert Pickton gathered tonight for a vigil. It comes on the eve of his eligibility for day parole, although the parole board says no hearing is scheduled at this point.
I think of my daughter every single day, but I don't want to think of Robert Pickton every day.
Loved ones gathered at Pickton's former pig farm in Port Coquitlam. That's where the remains or DNA of 33 women were found. In 2007, Pickton was convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of full parole for 25 years. A bit of a bombshell from the BC legislature today. In a surprising move, the province says it's not moving ahead with amendments to the BC Land Act after all. The changes were meant to share some of the powers with First Nations over Crown land. But the minister responsible now says backlash and misinformation has brought that process to a halt.
That misinformation was dividing people, pitting neighbor against neighbor, First Nations against non-First Nations. And that's not good for anybody. I think the people that were spreading that misinformation, and some of it came from political parties in the opposition, which is incredibly unfortunate, they have their own responsibility for that.
The minister says he's spoken to more than 600 groups about these proposed amendments already, but he wasn't clear about what more needs to be done before this moves forward or when that might happen.
I feel in some ways disappointed, even though I knew it wasn't going to be revolutionary. I think it was going to allow for some more tools for communities to have more decision-making, which on some level would mark an improvement.
First Nations leaders have called this sudden reversal damaging to reconciliation. Well, meanwhile, the federal government and the Matsqui First Nation have reached a settlement over the historic loss of reserve land going back over a century. The nation will receive $59 million now after a corridor of land was taken from Matsqui Reserve in 1908. At the time, it was given to the Vancouver Power Company, now called BC Hydro. The financial settlement recognizes that Matsqui was not adequately compensated for that land.
Before Confederation, our tribe had a 9,600-acre reserve, the largest of its kind in Stalo territory. That reserve was reduced by 99%. 99% of our land was stolen from us.
Ottawa says this is not about compensation, but about acknowledgement, adding this is a step to addressing past wrongs through reconciliation. They are called zombie fires, fires that rage in the summer months, burying themselves underground and then continuing to smolder all winter long. But the sheer number of those holdover fires right now burning in remote parts of northeastern BC has some fire crews worried about what might be to come. Here's what one firefighter is seeing.
As you can see here in northern British Columbia at the end of December 2023, we still have fire burning across this landscape. Well over 3 million hectares has burned and continues to burn throughout the winter.
Our fires did not stop burning. Our fires dug underground. We have had some cold days of minus 40, minus 42 Celsius, and on those days, even on those days, the smoke has been puffing out from underground, and you can see smoke all around still. It's the middle of February, and we're still not having snow or precipitation to be able to get into where the fires are. I've seen where the fires are burning into some plantations, so some of the younger plantations, the trees are starting to fall over. I've had friends that have seen candling north of town, so the trees are actually on fire, like what you would imagine in the summertime, like with flames going up the tree. We're heading into our third year of drought in the northeast BC, and so that's exacerbating fire behavior, which there was quite a few weeks last summer where we weren't even able to go out and work on the fires because they were so dangerous. Like, unless we get rain, we're in a pretty emergency situation looking into this summer. And even this week, it's not usually windy like this in February.
And from the fires in the summer to snow or lack thereof in the winter, it continues to be a disappointing year for skiers and snowboarders in BC. A mild winter has led to very poor conditions, and the businesses that depend on people hitting the slopes are definitely feeling that pain. Our Michelle Gassoub has more.
For those hoping snow conditions on the local mountains in BC would improve in the month of February, so far that has not been the case. Snowpack levels in the province are currently 40% below usual, especially on the local mountains. They're opening, they're closing. When they are open, the slopes that you can actually ski are quite limited. Mount Seymour today closed, saying they wanted to temporarily suspend operations in order to protect the snowpack that they do have, save it for the weekend when there are going to be more skiers and boarders on the mountain. But not all the province is facing these same conditions. Mountains in the interior, the southeast, and even Whistler are in better shape. Some of them had a relatively strong family day-long weekend, and they are emphasizing conditions can change fast. Every year the conditions are very different. We have had winters with subpar conditions before. So industry groups say local operators know they're going to have to adapt, especially as our climate changes, and these kinds of milder winters will become more frequent.
When you go back over the decades, conditions change and you don't know what you're going to get one year to the next. So ski areas, being very practical operators, have to plan, and they plan for change. You plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Other people being affected are those that operate businesses that depend on people being able to go and hit the slopes. Today we spoke to a local ski and snowboard rental operator. He said he was doing okay in November, December, even into January, but in February his business was hit particularly hard.
Previous year, February, usually people line up here, 35 people coming here every day. And we always run out of all the equipment. You have to let people know, hey, it's not working. I don't have any equipment for you. But this season, whoever come in, even we take a lot of reservation, but there's not many reservation, and a lot of reservation that made it for year before that, they have to cancel, right? So yeah, it's kind of like 70% less people now.
So business down 70%. That is a pretty major dip. He said that while international visitors are still going to rent, a lot of locals, they know the conditions aren't good on the slope, so they know they're not going to have a great day of skiing, and they're easing off on those rentals. It's important to note that the ski industry in BC brings in $2.2 billion a year. It employs 21,000 people, so it really is an important industry for this province. When we have a mild winter like this, we do feel the impacts. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
It's not just hotels. Ferry operators are also preparing for Taylor Swift's shows in Vancouver. Extra sailings are already being added for her concert weekend, even though it's not until December. And as Michelle Gomez is finding out, Swifties on Vancouver Island are preparing accordingly as well.
BC Ferries is feeling 22. That's how many extra sailings it added for the weekend of December 6th to accommodate Swift's shows. The reservations opened last week and Swifties are snatching them up.
I had Googled when do ferry reservations open, and I had it in my calendar for much later in the year because I think that BC Ferries normally doesn't open them this early.
Victoria resident Megan Smith is going to the Sunday concert with her husband and 2 kids and reserved her sailing as soon as she could. She attended Swift's concert in Seattle last summer and remembers the travel chaos all too well.
All the trains were booked out months in advance, all the buses, we basically had to drive. Then we're dealing with border crossing.
The extra sailings are between Vancouver and Victoria. For fans from farther up the island, Hello Ferry says it will also add extra sailings on its passenger-only route between Nanaimo and downtown Vancouver.
Most likely we will have late-night sailings on all 3 of those nights at coming back at midnight. And what that allows our guests to do is, come over for the day, enjoy the concert, finish the concert, and still have time to get to back to our terminal so that they can be home that night.
Bookings for these ferries will open up near the end of the summer.
It's a smart thing to do because there's going to be such an influx of people into the city from the island, so I'm not surprised.
Charlotte Palmer from Nanaimo plans to travel as a foot passenger, and although the ferries rarely fill up in walk-on space, she wouldn't in her wildest dreams travel without a reservation on Taylor weekend.
I should probably be smart about that and look into them earlier than later because I have a feeling it's going to be very busy.
Smith is planning to arrive a day before the concert in case of cancellations.
You want to give yourself a lot of time. I don't want to be rushing to try to get over there for the show on Sunday and risk anything happening. Again, especially in December, weather can be really brutal in December.
Megan advises other Vancouver Island Swifties to do the same to avoid any trouble while traveling. Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Vancouver.
A young hockey player from Surrey made his NHL debut last night with the Vancouver Canucks. Arshdeep Bains played for more than 13 minutes in total against the Colorado Avalanche. As Joel Ballard reports, it's been a hard-fought journey for the hometown kid to make it to the big leagues.
Got knocked to the ice. Here's Bains shooting, and he just missed the net.
For the first time ever, Arshdeep Bains laced up his skates and hit the ice as a Vancouver Canuck.
It was really special. I think I almost kind of forgot to hit the pucks on the ice when I went out there, so that's how kind of, I was just in awe of being out there.
Bains grew up in Surrey, and back home, many in the community were watching with pride.
It was cool to see him out there on the ice, and I think he had a good positive contribution to the team.
It's been a long journey for the left winger. He played on the provincial team at age 10, and even then, his former coach says his talent was evident.
Skill-wise, just tremendous hockey IQ, hands, passing ability. Stood out amongst a lot of the kids in his age group.
He remembers how Bains would film his play and watch the tapes, always trying to improve. That hard work carried into his professional career with the Abbotsford Canucks.
Your personality, you see it in how you play, and I think he's a guy who does things for others, does things for his teammates, unselfish, and that's, to me, again, he's very respected for how he carries himself.
The kid from Surrey who persevered, despite never being drafted by a WHL or NHL team.
It's just that dedication, desire, work ethic, and now he got to play a game in the NHL, which a lot of guys can't say they did that, and to do it with your hometown team, amazing.
Bains is now the 4th Punjabi player to ever play in the NHL.
This is a big moment. The significance in the community is massive. As we know, the Vancouver fan base is
one that is full of South Asian Canadians and Punjabi Canadians that love the game.
His story, he says, will serve as inspiration for other young athletes. That sentiment echoed back in Bain's hometown.
It's very motivational for these up-and-coming players, for sure, to see if he can do it and just put in their hard work. And yeah, they definitely something that could be promising moving forward for all these, young players.
For Tuesday's match, Bain's father tagged along, proudly watching his son make his NHL debut.
He was a little emotional, told me a little bit of water in his eyes, but that's every kid's dream, I think, to make their dad proud.
Here's Baines on the 2-on-1, and it just goes off the stick.
Joel Ballard, CBC News, Surrey.
Still ahead, the University of Victoria hired its first black professor in 1963. After the break, we'll hear from his daughter about his mentorship of black students and the legacy he leaves behind. Stay with us. And thank you for being with us during our commercial-free live stream. We're learning more today about some of the world's most iconic whale species and about how humans are affecting the way these gentle giants communicate. The CBC's Anand Ram has more.
The siren song of a humpback whale. But these marine mammals also sing a different tune.
Makes a Harley Davidson sound like a child's toy.
These low-frequency sounds are the focus of new research in the journal Nature. Using vocal organs from dead baleen whales like humpbacks, they pumped air through them and discovered that these whales rotated their organs to vibrate an inner cushion, all to communicate danger, food sources, and for mating.
If you're in a very crowded bar and you need to sing to find your mate, and everybody else is making all this noise, you won't be able to find your mate.
In other words, when you sound like an engine, real engine noise is disruptive. And the new research says diving down deeper won't help. Because of how compressed air gets down there, the whales physically struggle to make these sounds. So to vocalize like this, they have to do it closer to the surface.
And that's exactly where we make boating noise, in exactly the same frequency range and also on the surface.
This noise pollution affects all marine mammals, and in Canada some solutions have been to move or slow down ships.
And all of these things generate noise.
But this advocate says there's even more to be done.
Really the biggest thing that industry and governments can do is to facilitate movement towards more quieter technologies.
So that when these giants sing their songs in the dark, they can find each other and thrive. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
For the rest of the week, we'll be showcasing Black stories and experiences in BC in honor of Black History Month. Frank Robinson was the University of Victoria's first Black professor. He started teaching chemistry at the university in 1963 and went on to have a successful 37-year career, taking many Black students under his wing. He also served as Assistant Dean of Arts and Science at UVic before retiring in 2000. He died in 2006. His daughter, Angela Guattari, joins us now. Thank you for joining us, Angela.
Thanks very much for having me.
So we know race played a big role in your father's career, even when he was hired for his job. Take us through how that unfolded.
Well, when he was hired for his job, he was hired over the telephone. So he was in Edmonton at the time at the University of Alberta and was hired over the telephone. So I think it was a bit of a surprise. People didn't realize that he was Black when he was hired. So I understand that people had let the powers that be at UVic know that they had hired a Black professor, and they didn't realize that because they'd only spoken to him over the phone. So they were a little bit surprised, and I guess probably had to make a little bit of adjustments when he arrived at the campus.
Quite the start for him. What hardships did your father face being the only Black professor on campus for so many years?
Well, when they first came to Victoria, I think their first challenges were finding places to live. They were refused at a number of apartment buildings and things when they were looking for places to live. And I know the place that they finally did end up living was only with the permission. The landlord went through the entire building and asked everybody that was living there if it was okay if they allowed a Black person to live in the building. They also had lots of problems. I guess almost every year, my father would have someone that would think that he was the janitor rather than a teacher. So it would always take a bit of convincing. Even if he showed up in a suit or a lab coat, people would assume that he was the janitor working at the school rather than someone that was actually teaching there.
And just wrapping up here, talk about how he paved the way ultimately for Black students and professors at the school.
Well, I think, being the first, I think for the beginning, it was probably really hard for him, but I know he always made great care to take in sort of every Black student that came to the school, or the next Black professor that came to the school. He always made sure to take everybody under his wing to help them along and show them the ropes and help them feel more comfortable. I know we had numerous students come to our house that, especially students that had come from Africa rather than the States where they weren't used to being a minority. And I know he always reached out to make sure that he supported people when they first arrived in Victoria.
You must be very proud of him.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing these stories with us, Angela.
Thank you very much.
That's Angela Guattari, whose father, Frank Robinson, was the University of Victoria's first Black professor. Here's a live shot of a bit of a misty and foggy downtown Vancouver. Those off and on showers will continue tonight and tomorrow. Your full 5-day forecast is next.
It's been a busy couple of days at Liberty Tax in Charlottetown.
It's been really busy, so far, and as the time goes on, it gets busier and busier.
Tax season officially started this week. Sarah Fredericks says her schedule has been filled with bookings and walk-ins, some looking to get their taxes done early, others with questions about what's different this year.
So the biggest change is that there is a first home savings account, and it will allow you to get a deduction on your taxes. As long as you take it out to buy a home for the first time, you don't have to pay taxes on it.
There are other changes too. People working from home because of COVID-19 used to be able to claim $2 a day with no proof of receipts. That's no longer the case. Those who flip homes have to pay full business taxes on the profit, and there is a new tax credit for some renovating so certain family members can live on the same property.
Someone who may be determined to keep some members of their family within their home property. So if you're going to add to your property, you can claim a tax credit up to $50,000 for qualifying renovations to your property.
Jamie Jackson says he knows that some find taxes complicated, and getting help can also be expensive.
Trying to make tax filing, it's never going to be fun, but it's it's relatively easy. And as I said, for those who aren't able to do it on their own, we're more than happy to help them through our free community volunteer income tax program.
Audrey Morris has volunteered with the program for 7 years now. In 2022, she helped more than 400 people. Last year, she lost track. And so far, she has already heard from 10 in just a few days.
When you know how to do it, it's not hard. But I mean, I know people, just sort of think, I don't want to, I can't do it. And you just help them along. And it's, you get to know people and you get to meet new people. And it's just enjoyable, I think.
Most Canadians have until the end of April to file. That's also the deadline for anyone who owes money to the government. Now, those who are self-employed or who have a partner that's self-employed have until June 15th to file their taxes. But because that falls on a Saturday, as long as it's received or postmarked on or before June 17th, it will be considered on time. Shane Deschardins, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Hey, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 12th, join CBC Vancouver's Michelle Elliott at the YWCA City Shifts free event, Reimagining Our Cities, Advancing Equity in a Polarized Time. For more information, visit ywcavan.org. And CBC Vancouver is the exclusive media partner of West Coast Leaf's annual fundraiser, the Equality Breakfast, March 8th. Tickets at westcoastleaf.org.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Darius Madavi is here with a look at the forecast. Darius, we saw those showers not really budge for a lot of today again.
Yep, that is the case. But fortunately, after tomorrow morning, we should get a little bit of a dry spell. Tomorrow at around noon, those showers should start to clear out. The sun should come out, so we should get at least a few breaks in those clouds. So pretty nice day shaping up to be tomorrow. We might get a little bit of snow on the local mountains tonight, but freezing levels are still quite high and being a bit stubborn about coming down as quickly as we might hope. So it looks like there's a chance it'll just be rain. But we can keep our fingers crossed. Now, in terms of what's happening right now, still a bit of precipitation there, going to continue overnight tonight, but then by tomorrow morning it starts to clear out. And then the thing to watch for as these showers clear off the island pretty quickly is going to be this next system coming down, bringing precipitation throughout much of BC by Friday, and then going to continue to spread down, potentially bringing some very brief, short-lived showers to Vancouver on a Saturday, as well as parts of the island. But I wouldn't count on it making its way to most of the lower mainland. Saturday seems like it's going to be relatively dry. Sunday, though, those showers spread to much more of the province, especially here on the coast. And so Sunday shaping up to be a wetter day in Vancouver than we might have expected. We were expecting earlier. So be prepared for a little bit of rain that day. But also, freezing levels should have come down a bit. We have a bit of a cold front moving in early next week, maybe even late this weekend. So maybe some good news for snow there. Meanwhile, though, over the next couple days, temperatures staying relatively high, especially in the double digits here on the coast and in parts of the southern interior in the Okanagan. We're looking at some double-digit temperatures over the next couple days, so a little bit unusual there, unusually high in parts of the north as well. Now, in terms of conditions, just some sun and a little bit of cloud throughout the north tomorrow. Meanwhile, that little bit of activity still tomorrow morning on the south coast. And other than that, relatively calm day across the province. If you want to zoom in to the local mountains, you can see here it's mostly just going to be rain over the next couple days. Small chance of that snow tonight, but I wouldn't count on seeing much of it at all, so not too much good news there. But in terms of conditions, we do have those temperatures starting to come down as we get into early next week. And other than that, be ready for those showers tomorrow morning, and then a drier commute back home.
We'll take that 11 degrees, that's for sure. Thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
And that is your late news for this Wednesday, February 21st. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download the free CBC News app, and you can always find us online at cbc.ca/BC. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.